Imagine walking into a desert cave where the sands have swallowed centuries, and what you find is not gold or jewels, but human history in its rawest, most disturbing form. A collection of skeletons, perfectly preserved in the dry, unyielding heat, each with strange markings on their bones, evidence of rituals, suffering, and survival strategies that modern psychology can only begin to interpret. This is not merely an archaeological site. It is a mirror reflecting the extremes of human behavior, the adaptive and sometimes terrifying mechanisms our species has developed to cope with fear, isolation, and mortality. This discovery, hidden for centuries under layers of time and sand, forces us to confront uncomfortable questions about what it means to be human. How do societies respond to existential threats? What are the limits of perception under stress? And how does collective memory shape the trajectory of civilizations? These are not abstract ideas, but signals embedded in the very bones and artifacts left behind by people who lived, suffered, and adapted in ways both familiar and alien to us. The cave, silent and unassuming, is a node in the network of history, a point where biology, psychology, and culture intersect in ways that challenge our conventional understanding of humanity. At first glance, it might appear that we are observing the fragility of individuals. Yet a deeper look reveals the resilience encoded in every action, every tool, and every burial practice. In this sense, the cave is less a repository of death than a laboratory of human survival, an ancient experiment in coping with extreme stressors that modern neuroscience and social psychology are only beginning to decode. The skeletons tell a story not just of disease or famine, but of perception under duress. Neurobiologically, the human brain is wired to prioritize immediate survival, sometimes at the cost of long-term cognitive coherence. When we study these remains, the patterns of trauma etched into bone, the spatial arrangement of burials, even the choice of grave goods, we are seeing the echoes of adaptive stress responses, the neural equivalent of emergency circuits firing to preserve both individual and collective life. It is a paradox. What appears grotesque or horrifying at first is, in fact, a testament to an underlying order, an evolutionary logic that governed behavior long before the concepts of morality or ethics were formally articulated. Consider, for instance, the marks on the bones that indicate repeated exposure to sharp instruments or fire. To a casual observer, this may seem like evidence of violence or ritualistic cruelty. Yet when interpreted through a neuropsychological lens, these actions can reflect complex coping mechanisms, social cohesion strategies, or even proto-medical interventions. The human brain, under extreme environmental stress, begins to rewire its priorities. Perception narrows, attention becomes hyper-focused, and behaviors that may seem counterintuitive to modern sensibilities can emerge as highly functional survival strategies. We see in these ancient bones the neurological principle of predictive coding at work. The brain constantly updates its model of the world to reduce uncertainty and optimize outcomes, even in conditions of extreme scarcity or threat. In other words, the cave is a stage where evolution has tested the limits of cognition and social coordination simultaneously, a place where the interplay between individual neural circuits and collective social structures becomes tangible in the archaeological record. What does this tell us about history itself? It suggests that civilizations are not simply built on the accumulation of material wealth or political power, but on networks of adaptive behaviors, transmitted knowledge, and the subtle calibration of fear and cooperation. Each skeleton is a node in this network, each artifact a signal, and the cave as a whole forms a kind of cognitive map of resilience and failure. There is a lesson here that extends beyond the specifics of this discovery. Human history is deeply intertwined with the neurobiology of perception and the sociology of adaptation. In moments of extreme crisis, societies exhibit what modern psychologists call collective stress responses, ranging from altruism to extreme aggression. The archaeological patterns in this desert cave reveal precisely these dynamics. We see clusters of burials that suggest community support structures, possibly for those too weak to survive alone, juxtaposed with signs of conflict or ritualized harm that indicate social hierarchies and coping mechanisms in action. The cave functions almost like a neural network itself, with each individual acting as a node transmitting signals of danger, cooperation, or cultural memory to the wider system. This perspective reframes our understanding of disturbing discoveries. Often, we react with shock because we perceive human behavior in isolation, as discrete events rather than emergent properties of complex adaptive systems. But when we interpret these bones, these artifacts, and the spatial logic of the cave as components of a larger system, the horror transforms into insight. We begin to see patterns of survival, strategies of risk mitigation, and the ways humans collectively manage uncertainty over generations. Imagine the neural equivalent of this network, each brain in the cave's community functioning as both an individual processor and part of a larger distributed system where memory, threat, assessment, and problem-solving are shared across social and temporal dimensions. This is not metaphor alone. Ethnographic parallels suggest that such distributed cognition, where knowledge and behavior are transmitted through ritual, apprenticeship, and symbolic practice, is foundational to human adaptation. In this sense, the desert cave is a classroom in evolutionary psychology, teaching lessons about resilience, stress, and the collective shaping of human destiny. Yet there is a twist that challenges our intuitive understanding. Many of the features that initially appear as signs of weakness, fragile skeletons, evidence of starvation, ritual mutilation, may in fact be indicators of strength. They signal adaptive risk management, social support networks, and culturally codified strategies to mitigate mortality. The very traits that make us recoil are the ones that allowed communities to survive environmental extremes, pathogen exposure, and social turbulence. History, in this view, is not a linear tale of conquest or decline, but a dynamic system where apparent vulnerability can be functional, where suffering is intertwined with innovation, and where the limits of the individual mind are continuously negotiated within the collective. Consider the philosophical implications. If a society encodes resilience in ways that appear grotesque to outsiders, does our moral or aesthetic judgment obscure the deeper evolutionary logic? Are we capable of fully comprehending historical human behavior without acknowledging the neural, psychological, and social pressures that shaped it? The cave's discovery forces us to confront these questions. It is a physical reminder that our perception of history is mediated by both what survives and how we interpret it. Each artifact, each bone, each layer of sediment is a signal in a vast network of adaptation, a piece of the puzzle in understanding how humanity navigates uncertainty, risk, and mortality. There is also a temporal dimension to consider. The cave compresses centuries into a single spatial frame, allowing us to observe the evolution of behavior over time. We can trace shifts in burial practices, changes in tool use, and variations in trauma patterns, all of which correspond to environmental stressors, resource availability, and social complexity. Neuroscience offers a compelling metaphor here. Just as the brain consolidates memory to optimize future behavior, societies consolidate experience in physical and cultural forms. The cave is a tangible archive of this collective learning, a fossilized memory of adaptive strategies encoded in material culture. Psychologically, the discovery challenges our understanding of fear, risk, and social cohesion. Humans are wired to detect threat, to respond rapidly to uncertainty, and to form alliances that mitigate danger. The spatial arrangement of the remains suggests that these cognitive mechanisms were expressed not only individually, but socially, creating emergent patterns that enhanced survival. Ritual, in this context, can be understood as a form of cognitive scaffolding, a way for communities to regulate anxiety, reinforce norms, and transmit critical knowledge across generations. The desert cave, then, is more than a repository of death, it is a laboratory of human cognition, offering insights into the neural architecture of social behavior under extreme conditions. For modern viewers, this discovery carries an additional resonance. In an era where environmental, social, and technological stressors are accelerating, understanding how past humans managed uncertainty and mortality is not merely academic. It provides a blueprint for resilience, highlighting strategies of risk distribution, cooperative problem-solving, and cognitive framing that remain relevant. The past becomes a mirror, reflecting both the fragility and the ingenuity embedded in human biology and culture. Moreover, the cave compels us to rethink the boundaries between individual and collective survival. What is often interpreted as cruelty or ritualized harm can also be seen as adaptive, a mechanism to reinforce social cohesion, allocate scarce resources, and maintain systemic stability. In this sense, evolutionary biology, psychology, and archaeology converge to provide a holistic understanding of human behavior that transcends simplistic moral categories. The marks of suffering etched into bones are simultaneously a record of trauma and a map of resilience, signaling pathways through which societies negotiate scarcity, danger, and mortality. Consider the implications for neuroscience. Just as individual brains exhibit plasticity in response to stress, societies exhibit a form of collective plasticity, adjusting structures, behaviors, and norms to maintain functionality under pressure. The desert cave is a vivid illustration of this principle. It demonstrates that human systems, whether neural or social, thrive not by eliminating stress entirely, but by integrating it into adaptive processes, converting potential threats into structured responses. This insight has profound philosophical resonance. It suggests that weakness, suffering, and vulnerability are not mere accidents of history but integral components of adaptive systems. The very characteristics that provoke horror or revulsion are the same characteristics that enabled survival and cultural continuity. The desert cave, therefore, is both a scientific and ethical lens, forcing us to reconsider the metrics by which we judge historical behavior. Finally, the discovery challenges us to reflect on our own cognitive and social assumptions. When faced with environments of extreme scarcity or threat, how do modern humans respond? What patterns of cooperation, competition, and adaptation emerge? And how might they echo the lessons encoded in the bones of those who came before us? The cave, silent and ancient, offers no easy answers, but it does offer a framework for understanding the complex interplay of biology, psychology, and culture in shaping human destiny. It reminds us that history is not merely a sequence of events, but a network of signals, feedback loops, and adaptive strategies that span generations. Each skeleton, each artifact, each layer of sediment is a piece of this network, a signal in the ongoing conversation between human beings and the environments they inhabit. As we leave the cave, we are confronted with both awe and humility. The discovery compels us to acknowledge the depth of human resilience, the sophistication of ancient adaptive strategies, and the enduring influence of perception, stress, and social coordination on the arc of history. It is a reminder that what we often interpret as weakness or horror may, in fact, be the crucible through which survival and civilization itself are forged. This cave, hidden for centuries in the shifting sands, is a testament to the complexity of life, the intelligence embedded in social systems, and the capacity of human beings to endure, adapt, and transmit knowledge in the face of uncertainty. History, in its rawest form, is not just recorded in texts or monuments, but in the very architecture of human experience, etched into bones, arranged in patterns, and preserved in ways that challenge, educate, and inspire. If this exploration of the desert cave has revealed anything, it is that our understanding of humanity is deepened not by sensational discoveries or dramatic narratives, but by careful observation, integration of science and philosophy, and reflection on the intricate interplay between mind, body, and society. The cave's secrets invite us to think critically about our assumptions, to recognize the adaptive genius hidden in suffering, and to appreciate the subtle signals through which human resilience is transmitted across time. What will we learn from these signals, and how might they shape the way we confront challenges in our own lives? These are questions for every observer, every student of history, and every curious mind. If this journey into the depths of time and human behavior resonated with you, take a moment to reflect on the signals in your own environment. Consider how perception, stress, and social networks influence your decisions, and how ancient lessons may still guide us in unexpected ways. Like the cave itself, this channel aims to be a signal, transmitting knowledge that challenges assumptions and sparks curiosity. If you want to continue exploring history through this lens to uncover the hidden logic behind human behavior, and to see the intersections of neuroscience, psychology, and archaeology in new ways, please like this video, leave your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to Past Lens. History has much more to teach us, and together we can decode the signals that shape our past, present, and future.